hear me? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the September 23rd, 2024 Franklin Planning Board meeting. This meeting is audio and video recorded. It's also on Zoom, and the Zoom call-in number is 312-626-6799 with a meeting number of 961-308-86695. Our first items of business, we'll take care of general business first before we go to a couple, excuse me, a couple public hearings. Our first item of business will be a final Form H for 515 West Central Street. If I could go to Amy for Department of Planning, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the planning board approved 515 West Central Street on February 7th, 2023 for a new child care facility. They've submitted for their final Form H. I know that they were here in July 8th for the final Form H, but the planning board issued a partial Form H with a bunch of outstanding items. I know that Matt Crowley from Beta is online. I think the one outstanding issue still is cleaning out the detention basin.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I'll go to Matt. Matt, you there?
I am, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So during the last hearing for this project, there were a number of outstanding items that the board wanted to see addressed. I would say that they generally have been addressed. However, wanted to provide a little context on a few of them. So structural engineering reports and photos of the retaining walls have been provided. It is Beta's understanding that they either have been reviewed or are being reviewed by the building commissioner. They did provide an updated photometric plan that reflects the installed lighting at the site. We note there's no anticipated issues with safety or security next to the building. And we also note that the area in question is not intended for pedestrians or regular traffic. And finally, the pond that's located at the front of the development, the infiltration basin, it has been cleaned of trash, debris, and woody vegetation. But we do note that the bottom appears to contain a layer of muck that would still impede infiltration. Be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Mike, if I could go to you, DPW.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Beta's been out there for the construction inspection for the whole thing. We have a copy of, we do receive a copy of the as-built, everything that we needed for our files, but I just defer back to Matt for any outstanding items, which is basically just that basin in the front.
Okay. Before I go to the board, I'll go to the applicant. If you just want to introduce yourselves, please, for the record.
Amanda Cavalieri with Garrier and Howland.
Ben Stone with Stuple Group, GC on the project.
Okay.
If we may address the comment from Matt.
Yep.
So as far as the detention pond goes, we went back through some of our older photos from prior to construction. We were able to, and this was right before the meeting, so I can send them to Matt, but I did bring a copy to submit to the board tonight, that the photos that we took on November 19th, 2020 show the basin in fairly poor condition before construction started. And then 2 photos from July 18th, 2024, after construction was just about finished, and then photos from our site visit on September 16th, 2024, that show that it's in significant improvement from before construction and before 2020, before anything even was permitted up there. So if I may, I'd like to bring those up.
Sure.
And I can email those over to Matt and Amy tomorrow morning.
Yep, could you please?
And what we would like to request of the board is to consider certificate of occupancy and final Form H for the project. And it is that basin is owned and maintained by the 3 property owners up there. It's a private matter. They are willing to look at the issues and see if there's additional information or additional maintenance that they can do out there, but it's something that is part of the private property to maintain in perpetuity with the properties.
Okay. All right, good, thank you. I'll go to the board first. Anybody, questions, comments? I just want to let everybody know Mark is on Zoom tonight. Mark Mitchell is watching on Zoom too. Jay, comments, questions? Beth? No? Jen? The only question I had is, When would the next cleaning be from the subdivision, from the, because it's privately held, what's the next maintenance run on it? That's the only thing, to make sure it's functioning properly.
So I think that's something that we would recommend to the property owners, and getting on the same page as far as annual maintenance and monthly maintenance to make sure that that stays in operation. There's very minimal water that's in there at this point, from July, after we were having those significant rainstorms, so I think that cleaning definitely helped, out there. And now it'll be an ongoing maintenance with the tenants that are on those properties.
Okay. Matt, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to if the board is comfortable that the basin is going to be maintained and have that muck cleaned out so that it functions properly.
Okay. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the final Form H for 515 West Central Street.
Second.
With the condition that an OEM manual for the cleaning of the basin is taken care of.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I have one quick question for that, Amy. I know this one is gonna have traffic studied.
Mm-hmm.
When is that triggered now? Now that they're open, but when was the duration of
I
time?
believe it was 6 months from opening.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, our second item of business would be an A&R for a Laughlin plan. If I could go to Amy, Department of Planning, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, we have an 81P Form A in front of us for 578 East Central Street. They actually are, they have 2 lots, and they are taking a little bit of parcel 1 to add it to parcel 2A. And they meet the compliance for their zoning.
Okay. So basically, large enough to make 2 parcels, real 2 parcels now?
Yes.
Where it was, okay. Yeah, anybody from the board? Comments, questions? No?
Mhm.
No? Okay, make a motion to approve the A&R for the Laughlin plan for 2 lots. Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item of business, this would be for a field change for 19 Cottage Street. If I could go to Amy, please, for a quick update.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We actually had our pre-construction meeting with them, and they had, they discussed possible making some of these changes by the curbing and the sidewalk and the entrance, and we talked about this being a field change and deferred to our town engineer because it really relates to the entrances and the sidewalks that are under DPW's purview.
Okay. Mike, if I could go to you, please, with DPW?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we did have the pre-construction meeting on site in the field, and we, when we're out there, we noticed the existing curb cut openings and how they're related to the proposed work, and one of the things we were talking about is that for the work within the right-of-way, they did pull a DPW permit for right-of-way excavation permits, and we can manage it through that, but we'd like to see the existing curb cut that's no longer gonna be used, actually have that close of the street, put a curb in there, so somebody doesn't, they do have, the original plan did have bollards at the back of sidewalk, but I think actually having a vertical curb there would be better, so we'd want them to do that, and then, I think the applicant may be here, but they have, I think a couple of other things that we're talking about, field changes regarding to the curb on site. We didn't have any issues with the proposals.
Okay. Is the engineer of record on site? If you just want to, just introduce yourself and give a quick update. I know we had talked about this in the previous run, if you want to just give the board a quick update as well.
Yeah, so my name's Steve Dunbar, and I was the design engineer for the site. So we had our pre-con. The original design, I was trying to minimize the impact to the town property, so I was leaving the existing curb cuts in place. And then, as Mike pointed out, when we had the pre-con, he commented that that might be a concern, that the vertical curb replacement, any section of obsolete curb cut to be replaced with vertical curbing. So we agreed, the property owner and the contractor, we talked it over, agreed that it would not only be safer for pedestrians to have the vertical curb back in place, but the removing of the bollards, because you have vertical curb in place, would also be more, aesthetically pleasing to the, rather than have 5 bright yellow bollards downtown area, the curbing would be better. So we're putting in not only where the new 24-foot wide two-way entrance is, there was a section of curb cut that we were going to fix, put vertical curbing in. The entire middle entrance will now be removed, the curb cut and vertical
So
curbing.
you're
put in.
cleaning up what you thought could have been a problem in the past.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, based on Mike's comments.
Sure, okay. Chris, any comments? Questions?
No comments, no questions.
Jay?
No, happy to see this happen, kind of surprised it didn't in the first place.
Yep, okay. Beth?
Good cleanup.
Okay.
Good. All good.
Mark? Comments, questions? Okay. Okay, so I make a motion to approve the field change for 19 Cottage Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, before you take the vote, there were 2 other pieces to that. Did I miss that?
Yeah, on the
Yeah, there was
requirements.
2 other items.
Oh,
You want me to
well, go
describe
ahead.
those? So one was, the property owner and the contractor proposed to transition from granite vertical curbing to precast concrete once we get inside the property, that 10-foot offset. Mike indicated that would probably be okay, so that's what we proposed. That was another change on the plan. And then the last one was the lighting. So I had sent my lighting contractor the town spec. I actually got it from one of the folks at the DPW sent me the cut sheet. Somewhere along the way, she sent me a different light, the original light that you all approved. It turns out that, so I went back to her, she proposed a light that is almost identical to the town, the lights that you see in the downtown area, street lights. It provides almost the exact same lighting pattern. It might be different by like a foot. But we've got in writing from Oteri that they were okay with the additional lighting still with the spillage. And it saves the property owner a good chunk of money, like $9,000 cheaper. So it's a win-win.
I apologize, I missed that on my notes. Okay, so, everybody good?
Yep.
Okay, so we will make the motion to approve the changes for 19 Cottage Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, our next item of business would be for a decision for Six Forge Parkway. Amy, if I could go to you, Department of Planning, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The planning board closed this public hearing on September 9th, 2024. Couple of comments that were made at the last meeting was to have Beta will review the soil conditions in the back infiltration system. Also to add dimensions from curb to curb at the front entrance throughout the pavement. Those are some comments made. Recommended special conditions would be that Beta will observe the construction of the retaining walls and limited site plan required for each tenant. And then they also have one waiver request to use the reinforced concrete pipe. Those were the things, if the board makes a decision tonight, those were the items to consider.
Okay, good, thank you. I'll go to Matt. Matt, if you could give us a quick update on the balance, what we were looking for, if you're comfortable with it?
Yes, I think at the last hearing, Mr. Chairman, Beta's comments had pretty much been addressed. So it really comes down to the conditions that Amy has recommended.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the waiver request to use reinforced concrete pipe.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the site plan for Six Forge Parkway, including the following recommendations included in the certificate of vote. Beta will review the soil conditions in the back infiltration system, add dimensions from curb to curb, and, curb to curb at the front entrance throughout the pavement, and then special conditions to be added. Beta will observe the construction of the retaining walls, and limited site plan required for each new tenant.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you if you're out there. Okay, and then we'll have another, this will be for a Next item of business will be a decision for 240 East Central Street. Amy, if I could go to you for Department of Planning, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this was closed on September 9, 2024. Just a few discussion items about design review did approve the facade and landscape and lighting on June 25th, 2024. There was discussions about the facade, and I know that there were discussions about a white fence along Lewis Street. Other than that, there's no further comments for
Okay.
a decision if the board was to make it tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll go to Matt or Gary, which one? Did Gary do that, or Matt? I couldn't remember.
We can let Matt do
Matt?
Thank you. Yes, this project had a review done by both Gary and myself along it. At the last hearing, Beta's comments were satisfied. I think it just were, the remaining things were things that the board had requested. So we have no further comments.
Okay, good, thank you. Mike?
We didn't have any further comments on this one either,
So
we're all set.
How about the board? Questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the site plan for 240 East Central Street, including the following conditions. Conditions that the building will be constructed in accordance with Design Review Commission's facade landscaping and lighting plan as stated June 25th, 2024. The board would like to see a white fence along Lewis Street. Propose that once construction starts, the applicant owner will have 18 months to complete construction, and an update required from the building commissioner every 3 months.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. Amy, under general business last week, I know unfortunately they went out the door. Quick update, no, a quick update on the building on Chestnut Street for the veterans and the Taj for the painting of the trim and completing that job.
Okay, yeah, so I did reach out to the owner and applicant of Chestnut Street. He said he's kind of plugging away at it. That's all he could give me. Not a whole lot more detail on it, so he's plugging away at it and working on it. I can reach out again if the board wants me to try to ask for some more hard deadlines on completion and some more specifics on it. I can definitely do that.
Okay. I would like to see it just because it's some veteran housing in there, so I want to make sure that gets built in a manly timeframe. Everybody on board with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Okay. I have not heard back as far as the facade on 340 East Central Street, so I will reach out to them again.
Okay, because I believe the patio's out of compliance as well. And
Mhm.
it's been going on for 3+ years. We gotta clean these up. Okay?
Okay. Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Our next item of business, this will be a continued public hearing for 488 and 496 Summer Street. And I guess we got some news this afternoon on some updates, but we'll look for a brief update from where we are. But I'll go to Amy first from the Department of Planning, please.
Excuse me, could you speak up? We can't hear you back here.
Okay. Chris, is Mike's on?
Yeah, I'll turn you off.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a while, so the last time they were in front of us was back in February 26, 2024. And I could just kind of go over a lot of the comments that the board had. Some of them might have been addressed, but not a lot of them have been. The special permit questions A through G to provide further information on them. Cross sections to see what the views would look like from the neighbors, gathering spaces and a sense of community, trails, for the open space, which is required under the senior village bylaw, amenities for the senior village. Square footage should be provided on the plans for the open space areas and how it will be protected. There's questions about how many acres of trees will be removed. Concerns that there was only one entrance to the site for, I believe, about the amount of housing that they were proposed. The sidewalk should continue around the entire portion of the site, which they provided, not in the open space area, but they have provided within the site. They've added some guest parking, and there was concerns about a traffic study for the entire neighborhood. They provided updated plans. They've reduced it from 44 units to 40 units. The town has exceeded its housing limit to allow for over 55 senior villages. However, the board is allowed to waive that. The waiver has not been requested formally in the paperwork at this point, but that would require a waiver from the planning board to move forward with the housing project.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'm gonna go to Gary next, from Beta. Gary, if you could give us a update or a brief summary.
I'm gonna try and do a brief summary.
There's a lot of comments in there, yep.
I do have quite a few comments. Maybe if I just hit the major ones.
Yep.
Number one is that the design of the roadway, they've got a design speed of 15 miles per hour. And yet, when you look at the subdivision control laws, you know, the design speed associated with subdivision control is 25 miles an hour. Based on the number of units here and the length of the road, they should at least hold to that minimum 25, and I believe all of the layout, including the horizontal and the vertical layout, should be designed to that 25 miles an hour, which would be in accordance with the subdivision control law, which would really, there's quite a few significant changes.
Okay.
Especially when you look at some of the curved areas of the horizontal. Even the vertical doesn't. The reason it's 15 miles an hour is that's all the site distance they allowed in some of the design. Number two, when you look at the site plan in this site, there's a ridge just behind the existing houses. Once you get over the top of that ridge, the grades increase from anywhere from 15 to 100%. It's extremely steep. If you look at the discharges from the two primary basins, they all discharge to the back. And in fact, part of the revised design was even to the point that they were going to allow the roof leaders on the back of the back units to just flow off-site. I don't believe that this site can tolerate any type of concentrated flow. Even the roof leaders are going to cause significant erosion, especially when you start looking at the walls. I mean, there are points where when the water tumbles over the top of the wall, it's got a 20-foot fall. I mean, nothing below that wall is going to stand up to that erosion, or stand up to that force. So you're going to experience that type of erosion. I think that's, you know, in a nutshell, those are the two big items.
Okay.
And when you look at the bylaw, my biggest issue is that the intent of the senior village overlay district was specifically to minimize the amount of grading necessary and maintain the existing vegetation to the maximum extent possible. There is no, you know, this site is pretty much, I mean, even when you look at the first row of houses, I believe the back side of them is a retaining wall that's 8 to 10 feet tall.
Yep.
You know, just to get to that first row. And even when you look at the distribution of the housing, if you look at the two front units, they occupy about 3.3 acres. Now you look at the other 38, they occupy about 9, but if you take out the constraints associated with conservation, they're about 4 there. So there's 38 units within the limits of about 8 acres, which is a density of just under 5 units per acre. But when you look at the two front units, there's 2 within 3.5, 3.3.
Yep.
you know, the density's only about 6/10, so there's not an equal distribution and an equal density. It's almost like a tale of two villages.
Mhm.
And those are my, I mean, obviously, I do have a laundry list
There-
associated with the stormwater,
Yeah,
but those are
yeah.
the two big,
Okay.
those are the three big items.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Gary. I guess I'll go to Mike with DPW next. Mike, your thoughts based on what you've seen already?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So Gary did a very thorough job. He's about 18 pages of comments, and I spent
Yes.
some time going through all those. And to be honest with you, I mean, all the ones relative to the roadway geometrics and all the drainage comments, I agree with what he said in his comments. So I'm kind of on the same page with Gary on that. And there's a lot of it, I think it's just a little bit much for the site based on the current design.
Okay, okay. Before I go to the board and the public, I'm gonna go to the applicants first. If you wanna just give us a brief overview, kind of where you've been and some of the changes that you've made, and I guess it's gonna be just a brief update, because I believe you submitted a response letter today to Beta, so if you wanna just give everybody an update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Edward Cannon on behalf of the applicant with Dan Merrickin from Legacy Engineering. Just a quick update, and Dan did submit his most recent comments this afternoon. We don't expect the board to have looked at them. We don't expect Beta to have looked at them. But just sort of some perspective on what's been going on. We were last here in February. The next day, the applicant dropped off a check for Beta. That check, we don't know where those funds went, so we don't know when Beta was paid. So we didn't get comments from Beta until mid-May. And then, as you all know, as you just talked about, there were a lot of comments. So Dan worked on those, got a response to Beta on July 25th. Beta responded on August 26th, and then Dan just got his response in today. The intent was to try to iron out as much as possible between Dan and Beta before we came back to this board. So we offered to continue again or to come in and update whatever was the preference, and we said, hey, you might as well come in, and so here we are. But that's what's been happening. If I may, just highlight a few things, and Dan maybe could bring the plan up and show the board if you'd like, Mr. Chairman, or we could, wait for that at another time.
Let's just hit the bullet points for now, because I got a funny feeling you're gonna come back
That's
to
fine.
this.
So there were 2 units on one side of the property that sort of was set off that the board asked to be removed, that had been removed. There were added 2 pocket parks were added at the request of the board to provide some recreational areas. 8 visitor parking spaces were added at the request of the board. The sidewalk was moved, again, at the request of the board. The location of the affordable units has been designated on the plan, again, as requested. There is now a gated emergency access. The board had wanted to see a second means of access. That's been added. And then the reduction in density, a 10% reduction from 44 down to 40. So there are a lot of changes, and a lot of that required a lot of work. So, as you've seen from the last comments from Gary, Dan and Gary have been working to try to sort of narrow that down. So there is a lot going on, but that's essentially what's been happening.
Okay, all right, good. Before I go to the public, I'll go to the board first. I guess, Chris, I'll start at your end if you wanna voice any comments or concerns.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the revisions thus far. The additional parking was a comment of mine from the last time you guys were here, so thank you for addressing that. I think one of the bigger questions or concerns, and understand there's some topographical challenges to the site, and Gary had kind of hit on it a little bit when we talked about density. Seeing as how we've met the senior housing requirement and we're looking for bonus units here, it's kind of like the 40B affordable problem where we don't have to. So is there some type of compromise that we can make to kind of look at reducing some density while still getting some bonus units for adding those senior housing? I think senior housing is important. We'd love to see something happen here. But I think seeing some continued work on just reducing some of that density, in my opinion, would be a big step forward.
Good. Thank you, Chris. Jay?
Awesome. So, I agree with Chris. The sidewalks were my comment. I think that works much better on the plans. But I'm in 100% agreement with the other 2 engineers in the room. There's just, this there's pages and pages and pages of pretty significant stormwater comments. And 15 miles an hour does not work as a design speed. I wondered the same things when I looked at the vertical curves. And then on top of that, so like Basin 2 just doesn't sit very comfortable with me having, like Gary had pointed out, basically 100% slopes, and this one's backed right up against a retention pond, or an infiltration basin, so I have some pretty significant reservations as to how that will act with, 100 years worth of hydrostatic pressure against it. So, I just think it's a pretty significant engineering challenge to fit the number of units you're trying to fit on this site, so same concern with the density, and I think it's showing in the engineering.
Good, thank you, Jay. Beth?
I think that, Jay and Chris's comments so far and Gary's are well put. There's a lot more work to do here. As far as us having met our requirement for senior housing, 55-plus developments, I know there's a need, and I'm not saying that I don't support the need for this kind of housing in this location, but I don't support it in this current form. I strongly feel that you can remove, let's see. Sorry, I lost my glasses and I can't zoom in here because I can't see. Unit 14 through units 2. Find a way to, I think if you get rid of those, you have a project that still leaves you with several units above with the 19 that is the base, so you get some bonus units out of it. You pull it away from the residential neighborhoods, you'll create more open space that's actually usable. I also feel the intent of the bylaw is not to include 2 single-family houses that are cut off by retaining walls and not actually part of this development. They're single-family houses. There's no way around that one. They're just being utilized for access and for utilities. So let's make that clear. Find a way to reduce this density, because as a board, we can vote on a waiver on how many units we feel are suitable for this site. And I'm going to request that that waiver be submitted. The lots, you have your open space here that has significant grade changes. I think you even noted in one of your comments that it's not possible that seniors are actually going to utilize that. So that kind of made me laugh. Isn't the point to be able to utilize it? I'm not talking just sitting on a bench. That's how big is that little area you provided? 2 little areas for bird viewing, I think you put. It's a little walkway with 4 benches. And I'm not finding where you said it's located around a main green area, green space. This roadways as a communal gathering spot. I just don't see it. So the big one for me is really the number of units you're still showing.
Good.
And everything else everyone has mentioned, which are pretty significant.
Okay. Jen?
I just think fundamentally this site is not appropriate for a senior overlay district. Development for senior villages should show a range of housing types and facilities responsible to various needs of senior residents. Grade change alone on this site doesn't allow you to even get from the street up to the housing without traversing at least an 8% grade change around a hill, which at that point requires, handrails, guardrails, even on just a sidewalk, I think. There are many lots that even just to get from the front of the house to your backyard, you'd have to climb 10 feet, 8 to 10 feet. Also senior villages are supposed to be concentrated in the most suitable and least environmentally sensitive areas of the landscape, and preservation of natural open space is strongly promoted. I would argue that clear cutting an entire forest adjacent to the town forest is not the least environmentally sensitive, being sensitive to that, not the most suitable area, and is not actually preserving natural open space. Certainly not with those steep grade changes to really maximize recreational use and enjoyment of the residents. I just feel like this is being used as a method to try to get as much density on a site in which the purpose is not really in the spirit of the residents that it's saying it's going to try to serve. And so I just think it's a lot more than minor little things that would have to change, at least from my perspective, for this to even be considered as an appropriate project which meets the bylaw requirements as a senior village overlay district. And so I'm just not even going to cover all the little details, but that's where I stand.
Okay. Actually, I'll go to Mark. Mark, you there? Any comments? Questions?
You're muted.
You're muted, Mark.
Oh, there I go, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Without piling on, I agree with all my fellow board members. I mean, my biggest concern was the density and the disturbing of the open space. As a kid, I was back there, and the topography is really, really steep. So I don't see it being practical for being used as open space as far as that back east corner. But again, not to pile on, I agree with all my fellow board members from A to Z. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I guess before I go to the public, I mean, I have the same comments and questions the rest of the board has. What my biggest concern is the amount of units based on the piece of property. I mean, you're maximizing every square inch of this place, and I get it, but it's not suitable for what we're looking for an over 55 community. I think you're gonna have to come back, and I think you get the board's gist that you're gonna do a serious reconfiguration of the amount of housing and the proximity of your walls to your houses. You'll probably be able to cut back 600 grand just in retaining walls by revisiting this. I did have a couple questions about cuts and fills. I didn't recollect seeing anything in there. I did see some numbers, but I think it was gonna be a fill, if I remember correctly, Gary, 3,500 plus yards or so? Okay. So, there's a lot of work to be done, and I think the density is your biggest factor, along with the topography of the site to make it work. Okay. I will go to the audience. I'll just go one by one. I'll give you 3 minutes to speak. Just approach the mic, give your name and address, please. And if anybody has the same comments as somebody else, just acknowledge them to keep it sweet, because this is going to get continued for everybody to know. Okay?
Good evening. My name is Kimberly Kane Beers, and I reside at 493 Summer Street, which is directly across from Mr. Hunchard's property. I had submitted letters back in July from my daughters, who are teenagers, wrote a letter, and then my husband and I, because we were not able to make the July 8th meeting. So I'll try not to read my letter completely, but at this time, I'd like to thank each and every one of you. I know a lot of time and effort has gone into researching this, reading it. We appreciate the time that you're doing this as a neighborhood. We at least feel like you care, that you're not just gonna allow this to go through without questioning all the concerns that we have. But I think we're all in agreement. This is an enormous project. It does not fit into our neighborhood. This project is not being built to provide homes for senior citizens who, let's face it, most of these people own their homes. They're not going to be able to afford a $900,000 unit, no matter how many units are affordable housing. It's there. No one. I don't know who's actually going to live there, because as I get older, I surely, if I owned my house, would not sell it to go buy a $900,000 unit in a senior living area. At the first meeting, one of the planning board members asked one of the gentlemen here tonight if the landowner was planning on residing in his home once this project was finished. Though he was, I'll give him a lot of credit, he was very careful in his response. Our whole neighborhood can answer that question for you. Mr. Hunchard will not continue to reside in his home. So we ask, why would you build something that you yourself would not want behind you or across the street from you, but do this to our neighborhood? Our neighborhood is comprised of a variety of families. Some of us are still raising children. Some of us have aging parents living with us. And many of us are living paycheck to paycheck so that we can continue to live in our houses. That they're not just houses to us, they're our homes. Though we may not have a neighborhood that has block parties every year like other neighborhoods, but we have a mutual respect for one another, and no one else in our neighborhood would ever try to destroy our neighborhood except for the person living across the street from us. I believe that I can speak for everyone here tonight that because of that mutual respect for all of our neighbors, no matter how much money, if we owned a parcel of land like this, that we could make off of a project like this, we would, one, care too much about our neighbors to do that, and we would never care more about the money than what we would be doing to the neighborhood that we're leaving behind. Many of us plan on dying in these homes. As I've said, I'm only going out of my house in a body bag. So, and I plan on living for a heck of a lot longer. So, thank you very much for listening to my thoughts and concerns, and I appreciate the fact that you're putting the time and effort into really thinking this project through. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kurt Lovell. I live at 711 Summer Street, down across from Camp Hyacinth. You addressed this a little bit earlier, that we are over the limit now for the housing now. So, I mean, did this all come about from the master plan? Isn't it didn't come from the master plan? Because it specifically states that we will not go over that. Go over that limit. The permits are only allowed up to 2.5% of the single-family homes, and we were already over that at the time of application. We'll be way over that, over 26% over that if this project was approved. So I'm just questioning, why are we even entertaining the idea?
Amy, you wanna?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anyone can apply for a senior overlay district. It's in the bylaw, and it's written that it's the planning board's jurisdiction to grant them a waiver or not grant them a waiver. It's just like going to the zoning board of appeals. You can apply for a special permit or a variance. Anyone can ask to can construct something or bring something forward. So this is just the process that they go through, that they're allowed to put forward a plan and request it.
And I just have one other comment or concern. As you've stated, it's very, very steep there. Just in the building area alone, there's over a 50-foot drop in just the building area, which requires retention walls all the way around the entire building, some as high as 26 feet. And then the open space is on the other side of the retention walls. you know, how are the seniors gonna get to that area? I mean, they're not gonna have ropes and ladders go up over the retention walls, are they?
We don't want any of it.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience have a comment or question?
Mr. Chairman, Mark Minichelli, 31 Longfellow Drive in Franklin. So I'm on Longfellow Drive. I don't have a vested interest in this per se. I'm a member of a grassroots organization that we call ourselves BEN for Franklin, where BEN stands for Building Equitable Neighborhoods. So in general, we're in support of abundant, affordable housing in Franklin, whether that be apartments or houses. And we also are interested in seeing units that are built a walkable distance from an abundant downtown area. That doesn't mean, though, that we're in favor of any project that has multiple units. And I can't speak for the organization, but I can speak just on my own behalf that the concerns that were raised tonight, similar to concerns that were raised in the past, particularly those by Board Member Williams, about the changes in elevation and the slopes, they're particularly concerning to me for a development that's meant to be a senior housing development. Not only concerns about seniors being able to move around during the good weather months, but in particular what happens when the snow and the ice comes, and you have these seniors trying to negotiate 8, 9, 10% grades potentially. Anyone at any age is going to struggle in those conditions. And I also happen to be a nature lover and walk the Franklin town forest. And I had real concerns as well about managing the water that's coming off of this development and the potential erosion and the impacts of that as well. I think it's a not well thought out and not honestly a senior project. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Stephen Foley, and I live at 480 Summer Street in Franklin. And I agree with just about everything that all of the neighbors have said. There's no question in my mind that Mr. Hunchard has no intention of living there. When you look at the walking path, basically they'd be looking into his swimming pool. So to think that he would be living there is absolutely silly. And furthermore, right beside his house is a irrigation basin, which I think is, in this case, is a euphemism for a swamp. And my biggest objection to that is the largest irrigation basin in this development, in this so-called development, is almost adjacent to my property. So that swamp that's going to be there, apart from the mosquitoes, when it starts to overflow, which invariably they do, it's going to drain down, and it drains down into Sally Winter's house, and it'll drain down into my property, and my well is like 30 feet across from the road that leads up to Sally Winter's house. So that when that happens, and it will happen, what's it going to do to my property? And that's an important thing because the town just instituted the so-called tax on runoff, and all that's going to do is create a huge runoff. On the other side of the property, I think you're going to have a Niagara Falls effect from the runoff down into the town forest and with the erosion. I don't believe for a moment that this project is going to be senior housing. I find it hard to believe that it would be senior housing when these are townhomes where there are stayers. What elderly person wants to move someplace where there are lots of stairs when they're at an age when they shouldn't be going up and down stairs? So I just don't believe that that's going to happen. And I don't believe that it's going to be affordable housing because, as has been mentioned, you're talking lots and lots of dollars in housing for people who are elderly, and they just won't be able to afford it. There's also the so-called emergency access road that we're talking about that runs basically, I don't know, first of all, whether or not, I know that it says that it's emergency access, but that can also change. And the way that property is, if you're leaving from the development on the emergency access road, basically you're going to be shining your lights right into my house. And if it's emergency vehicles, there's going to be fire engines and ambulances, and that's not a very pleasant thing to have somebody emergency lights shining into your home. So that it has a direct effect on myself and on Sally Winter's house. So I just think that it is it's just a bad plan from the beginning. And as has been pointed out, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, the preservation of the landscape when they're just going to scalp this place is just horrible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Max Marangelo. I live at 127 Central Park Terrace. Don't have a horse in this race. I just want to reiterate my past testimony at the last hearing. I think a lot of the people here would probably appreciate if there was a traffic light for any additional traffic on the intersection of King and Summer to accommodate sort of that additional traffic that's going to be coming through. If the developer was willing to sort of chip in for that, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sally Winters, and I live at 486 Summer Street, and I would be directly affected by this development. The construction road that Mr. Foley mentioned would go down along my driveway, which is probably from here to the end of the wall outside this building here, very close. Everything everybody has said I agree upon. We didn't talk about the traffic and the safety concerns. Summer Street is already a hazardous thoroughfare used by drivers heading to 495 from Rhode Island. The increased traffic from the high-density development will worsen existing conditions and dangers. The hazardous conditions have been a concern for decades. 30 years ago, I rode behind my son with my car with the flashes on when he wanted to ride his bike down Summer Street. 30 years ago, that's how terrible the traffic was. There's been 8 dogs hit and killed on Summer Street, and Mr. Foley's golden retriever was hit on Summer Street. Luckily, she survived. But it's just, the traffic is just horrendous. The development will exacerbate the risks, leading to more visitors, healthcare professionals, as Mr. Foley mentioned, moving trucks, along with increased noise and traffic. The water drainage is a problem as far as I see it. The site is on a slope leading to Uncas Brook, which is vital for Franklin's water supply. Removing the trees and regrading the land will disrupt the local hydrology and potentially contaminate our drinking water. This is a serious issue for our community. We rely on municipal wells, and there are wells down in that forest, which I've been walking for 42 years. I've lived there. My 91-year-old mother lives with me. Will she have to listen to this construction and noise for the remaining 5 or 6 years of her life? She's lived in this town for 72 years. I've been here for 67. I just hope that you will take our objections seriously and act in the best interest of our community. That's why we voted for you people to be on the board. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kanar Charchapwam. I'm calling, speaking on behalf of Camp Highest on 722 Summer Street. With me, I have John Miller, resident of 722 Summer Street, and on Zoom, our board member, Mike Batiarian. Camp Hyacinth has been landowners in Franklin for almost 85 years now, and as you guys know, we are lucky enough to own a large parcel of land that we do consider ourselves privileged and honored to. And with every decision that I have been a part of throughout my years being involved with the camp, the community has always been considered in that. And as you have heard from my fellow residents and the rest of the community, that is not the case in this situation. And for that, that's, you know, it's hard to hear and hard to be a part of. As Mr. James presented in his report, and someone referenced as Niagara Falls, that was now quite a concern for us, as that land abuts our camp area, right into our athletic field, that we do not plan on turning into a swimming pool at any point. So, as Sally just graciously, said, we hope that the revisions that are made in these next steps are not just direct to the quantitative data presented, but also to the sentiment of the rest of the Franklin community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm gonna walk out, but I wanna let you all know they all said the best. None of us want this to happen. So please, back us up, okay?
Thank you.
See you later.
I forgot to mention one thing. I'm representing a wide array of concerned residents, including people from Penny Lane, Squibnocket, Shakamo Path, Summer Heights, Woodchester Road, Camp Hyostan, Florence Street, the Rod and Gun Club in Uncas Pond. Our collective voice is clear. The development is unsuitable for our rural residential neighborhood, and I have over 250 signatures that have been signed on a petition, which I'd like to submit to Amy.
Amy, if you could, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody in Zoom? Questions, comments? This is gonna get continued. You have something to say? Just approach the mic, please.
Hi, I'm on 254 Summer Street, not close to where we're talking about. But, we're paying for, I think we're all paying for still open space, and now I've been in this town since '59, and I've seen the state forests that used to be, the farms are gone, all the way the town, and I know that progress is something that, exists and we can't fight it and it happens. It's part of life. But this town is so into sprawling. I mean, I give Mr. Delcott that left his land for the town to enjoy, and there's very few people that are that minded. And I really think that with the traffic on Summer Street, there's little kids riding bikes, there's women pushing a carriage, there's dog walkers. I walk Summer Street, and you're dodging cars and pickup trucks and whatever, and you get all that traffic from Rhode Island coming up. It's just a horror show. And then you already have emergency vehicles, like the gentleman mentioned, that will exist going to this senior, whatever, assisted living place that's being proposed. And I think everybody's just really frustrated in the water situation, the town water. I mean, we used to have good water, but now there's people up there with wells, and you have to consider that. So I agree with everything that's been said here so far, that this should be just stopped. And there's, like I say, there's enough sprawl going on with apartment buildings near uptown. These people are gonna be stuck out how many miles, couple miles, 3 miles from town. They're not gonna walk to Shaw's or someplace. They're gonna be just stuck there, aging, trying to climb stairs, whatever. No, I think you really should reconsider everything that's been said here, and please don't agree with this money-making project, please.
Okay, so I think we pretty much heard everybody make the...
There's one on Zoom.
Oh. You there? Zoom? Get your hand up? Mike?
Yeah, thank you. Mike Batarian for Camp Hyostan is
my executive director, Kanar, said, I'm one of our board members responsible for infrastructure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very quick. Like Kanar said, we are quite concerned with the statements about runoff and erosion control, given that we are downhill from the project. The first meeting, I was there in person. We spoke about our new septic system that was quite expensive, and our own wells down there that support our camp and our mission for the Armenian community. I understand that there was a peer review by Beta that had quite a lot of comments on it. I did not see it on the Franklin Town website. I'd just love to be able to get a copy to share with our civil engineers so that we can assess the further technical concerns. Certainly not something that I'm able to do on my own. So was that letter, can that peer review letter be made public, or can the location of it be provided? Please,
Yeah,
thank you.
It should be in the file, but it is available.
It's within the agenda of tonight's
Yeah.
meeting. Online.
Thank you.
Okay. So, I think everybody pretty much voiced their concerns. I think, you guys gotta make some decisions, and I think you're gonna come back with a plan that I think suits the needs of the property, the town, the neighbors, and, make it work if it's gonna work.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think, we've heard a lot of concerns, but some of them, sort of some hyperbole. And I think in order to fairly and dispassionately assess this application, I think it would be helpful to actually do a site visit and take a look at, and walk the property. And I think it makes a huge difference when you're able to do that. So, we have comments back to Beta, so, we would like to get Beta time to respond to that before we come back. But I think in the meantime, it would be helpful to do a site visit and walk it and get a sense of where it is and how it is oriented with the neighbors, and how, what the slope is like. And I think, so I think that would be an important part.
We don't typically walk sites. I'm very familiar with the site. I'm very familiar with the area as well. That's why we pay Beta. You pay Beta and we pay the town, but I think you guys gotta go back to the drawing board based on what I've heard from the board, residents, independent review. And I think the number of units is gonna be your triggering point. And I'm thinking you gotta lose at least 12 to 15 to make it even in the margin of coming across this table, to tell you the truth. And I'm not gonna waste your time based on the site. What's it allowed? 19? I mean, you're doubling the size already, you're at 40 basically. Cut it in half, reevaluate it.
Respectfully then, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask to continue to October the 21st meeting.
Yeah, we're gonna continue.
Yeah, and that way, hopefully that gives Beta time to respond to the most recent round of comments.
Does that give you enough time? I mean, I wanna make sure when you come back with something of substance.
We'll make we'll listen to, we'll consider all of the input, but we'll also, adjust the plan based on the bylaw, and, we'll present that for the board,
Mr. Chairman, just to note, whether you choose to or not, I will not be at the October 21st meeting, and I will not be able to call in.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put it on for the 21st. Yeah, thank you for letting me know.
Just putting that out there.
So we're gonna make a motion to continue 488 and 496 till October 21st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So this will be back October 21st, everybody. Well, if.
Can I speak, please?
Yeah, sure.
We just
we just closed the,
No, you just continue the meeting.
Can I have one thing to just say where you're continuing this now? We're just for 1 month. We've been strung along now since February, every month to come to this meeting, only to have it continued sometimes just 2-3 days before the meeting's supposed to be
36
taking
hours
place.
before.
Yes, and now he thinks he's gonna be ready October 21st to come back with something meaningful to the table? It's outrageous.
It is outrageous.
Yeah.
Just a comment on that, and I know, Ms. Winters, you've asked the same question.
Yes.
So there is no timeline for when an applicant has to tell us they want a continuance. They can come to the meeting with a room full of people here and say, you know what, we've decided we're going to continue it. It's not stringing you along, it's not, it's the way that it works. It's unfortunate. If we had our choice, we'd love to know in advance too. But it's unfortunate that.
Exactly, I wonder how long
Okay,
it takes
one at a
for
time.
you to get irritated enough to have these people say they're gonna be ready and waste your time
Regardless of
as
being,
well as
regardless of being
ours.
irritated, there's nothing in place
All
that
right.
we can do to prevent that.
So, we're
Yeah.
continuing to October 21st. Just keep an eye on the website in case it should get continued, but just keep an eye on the public website, okay?
I feel that, just a quick comment, we've been very communicative on when the meetings are gonna be continued. Fortunately, they have not had to come and sit here. We've had several meetings, and I know other towns have several meetings where they've sat here till 10 o'clock at night, and then the applicant shows up and says, I wanna continue. And not even, please, and not even be heard. At least we do get notification within at least a few, before I post the agenda. I think we've been very fair about it, with everybody, and as much as we can communicate, we are doing our best to communicate when we know. But at least you have not had to sit here for 3 hours to only hear that it's not gonna be heard. You at least know ahead of time. So thank you. They've moved the hearing, so there's no more comments.
Okay, good, thank you. So, our next public hearing will be continuation for 19 Dean Ave. If I can go to Amy.
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give it.
You said if they want
Wants to present? They have all plans.
Okay.
Yes. All right, we're gonna move on. This will be a continuation for 19 Dean Ave. I'll go to Amy for a brief update, please.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that we've been working with them for several months now with some changes. I've just to note that I have not had Beta do any stormwater review based on coming down to kind of meeting what the planning board would like to see at this site. So they're back in front of us tonight with 4 residential units and 6 on-site parking spaces for a concept plan.
Okay, good.
Just a
Thank you.
quick question
Sure.
before, Mr. Chairman, before we get started. I know this was originally advertised as one project, and then we went through kind of another iteration, and now we're on to another iteration, which I appreciate that you're working with us to come up with something. But at what point in time does the original public hearing notice change to what we're at right now? Is there any issues with us continuing a public hearing under the original public hearing notice that's different than what we're seeing now?
No, there's not, that's actually not a concern. It would just come into if they had any other special permits that, or waivers that they need to apply, that they need to make sure that they submit
Then we're
to the
covered.
board.
Very good,
Okay, good.
thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so, if you guys, before I go to the board, if you just want to introduce yourselves for the board, please, for record.
Great, sure. Edward Cannon on behalf of the applicant, Dave Durf, from Turtle Two, the applicant, and Alex Sikierski, the architect. The architect.
I know you had a overview for us, if you could just give us
Yeah, so-
something what your thoughts are now.
So by way of history, the applicant's come a few times with, it's a admittedly tricky site, right? And it's a critical piece of Franklin's downtown. So the applicant has come to the board to get feedback on what's the best way to make this work. And listening to the comments the last time we're here, went back to the drawing board and now has a proposal that it'd like to get comments from the board, and just trying to, obviously it's not a vote, but get a sense like, okay, now you're on the right track. And then the applicant can dive into those plans, make the expenditure, get Beta involved. So right now, we're sort of at the 30,000-foot view. So if we may, do we have the ability to bring up the plan?
You want to try to pull the plan up? Is-
We have them. We have them, yeah.
I think.
They all have it in front of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
If I may, through the chair, ask Alex to sort of bring the board through.
Sure. So we are showing an existing overlay of, in red, of the existing footprint of the building, the proposed property line. We're
Max-
also-
Maxine, could you share the screen with them if you can share the screen?
It has to be.
He's not in the meeting.
Oh, you're not plugged in, all right,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
This overlay also shows the roof plan on top as well, so sort of a multi-layered view looking at existing, proposed, and building footprint. It also shows the overhangs of the bay windows that we have to kind of try to capture as much information from an aerial perspective as possible. The units themselves, so we have at-grade parking with a single 24-foot aisle. We are showing 2 compact parking spaces that may need to be modified as the building footprint may need to meet the previous setback requirements. We're showing a single elevator, single stairwell. It's an R2 use, under 4 units or under, so we're only required 1 single means of egress. What else? So we have parking at grade, common elevator, 2 units on the 2nd floor, and 2 units with a loft on the 3rd and 3.5 floors. So we're under, the building height is 39.7 square feet, so we're under the 40-foot height constraint. And what else? Aesthetically, looking at elevations. So at grade where the parking is, we have fresh air louvers that match the size of the bay windows that go up the building. So trying to have this aesthetically fit into the neighborhood a little bit better than maybe what was previously shown and from the feedback I've gotten from the client. We have roughly a 6-foot parapet, so it goes from a gable on one end to sort of a flat section, just given the tapered nature of the site. In that roof area, we're going to do our best to conceal rooftop units, etc. So there's an actual flat section of roof that you cannot see that's concealed by a parapet. And then you have your 3D views. So units 3 and 4 that are on the 3rd floor, those are lofted and have a small section of roof deck on the back side that you see that's cut out of the gable roof. I think those are the big talking points. Trash, I know was a question. So there are 2 areas we are looking at, and this is going to be contingent on getting further feedback downstream from mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers once we know the size of utility systems. But potentially we have room in the utility room adjacent to the elevator, as well as on the left of the drive aisle as you come under the building. We'll have rollout garbage containers similar to what's happening at some of the residences next door. Parking, trash, single egress. That's it.
Good, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
I guess I'll go to the board. Chris, comments, questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Overall, I'm pleased with the design. I like the way that this looks relative to the last iteration. I also, and I'll say now, I do not have an issue with the removal of the commercial unit. I think going fully residential and allowing for 6 parking spaces below is great. I would say, given the recent change to the bylaw, zoning bylaw for parking for residential, I would be amenable to using those compact parking spaces for, like you said, trash or maybe another tenant amenity like a dog wash or bike park station, something like that. Then you still have 1 per. if you can keep the extra 2, and that's great, but I think it's just like you're trying to squeeze it in more than it needs to be for the parking there. The 39-foot height, I'm pleased to hear. I know that this had opportunity to go higher, so I appreciate you staying there, which is relatively, it's a little bit higher than what's currently there. But is that 39 foot to the top of the flat or to the midpoint of the gable? Where's that 39?
That's to the median slope of the roof from average grade.
Okay,
Yep.
so there's another couple feet above that gets to the flat?
8 feet on top of that to the ridge.
I thought it said 41 and a half feet
I thought it said 41 too.
There is,
to the midpoint of the roof, between the eave and the ridge.
there is another about 8 feet.
Yeah,
Eight,
to the ridge.
So
yeah.
47 total? Okay.
46.3.
46.3, okay. And in context, the current building is to the gable end 32 feet now or so, the existing structure? Just trying to gauge what's there now
Sure.
versus what might be there in the future.
I can pull that dimension because I have a scan of it. I don't know if I have it in front of me. David, unless you know what the existing was. I can shoot a message, see if I can get it quick.
Yeah,
I
sure,
don't
that's
have
fine,
it.
yeah.
If you can let us know, that's good.
But that, it would just be good for context.
Sure.
And then another thing, it looks like on the first page of the plan, so sheet A1, it appears that there's some dormers that are hanging over the property line. Is that correct, or is that just the drawing, the way that it came out?
So right now, they're shown to the property line. We will end up adjusting the building footprint, what I'll call near the parking lot side. We'll have to move it up 10 inches, and on Dean Ave, we'll have to move it down 1.5 feet, so that those bay windows aren't up to the property line. They'll meet the previous zoning approved setbacks.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
So overall square footage, though, might be pretty similar because we're able to go to a 0 lot line on the sides. However, there is a retaining wall that we don't want to excavate near, so it's a tight site, but we're trying to also keep the building as tight as possible to minimize impacts on excavation.
Great.
Yep.
The last comment I have just about the exterior presentation is on the Dean Ave side, to the right of the garage door. Just, it's like a blank slate. I know you did a good job with the louvers on the side. If there could be something, or just maybe break it up a little bit to give it a little more of aesthetic. Those are my overarching comments. But overall, I really like this one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Jay?
So out of all the things that we've seen come before us here, I think this one kind of best matches my expectations of what would work there. I am in agreement. I also think that ditching the commercial was a good idea. Civil engineer at heart though, so I like cars. And I lean more towards put, 6 spaces in there. I also like cars. And it's a 7 foot wide space. I'm like, that doesn't sound very wide. And I know 9 already isn't very wide. I usually make it 10. And I started looking at cars, and the Chevy Sonic is 5.7 feet wide. So you'd have 1.3 feet of clearance. And like even a Mini Cooper is 5.6 feet wide. So it just sounds really tight. So if there's any way to make those slightly bigger, or perhaps I have to engage in compromise with myself here. And Chris wanted 4 spots and I like 6, maybe we go with a 5 and it's an actual full-size spot. That's just kind of my thoughts on it.
I think once we adjust the building footprint, it's probably going to end up at 5, and then maybe we can add a different type of amenity with that leftover area.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's it, just 7 sounded really small. But beyond that, I think everything is a really nice use of the spot downtown. It fits the character. I think it's what the town's looking for, so nice job on this one.
I'm not gonna reiterate what they said, but what they said I agree with. Except I'll follow kind of along the lines of what Chris is saying for parking now that our regulations have changed. It's to your benefit. How big, and I know it's in here, how big was the retail space slotted to be?
Previous retail space?
Yeah, did you show any in this one, or is it just all residential?
Nope,
Sorry.
just 4 units,
Just
all
4 units.
residential.
My bad. I
No, that's okay.
misunderstood. Sorry. Then, yes, I would agree that reducing the parking spot to maybe, put something else in there that could benefit the residents would be helpful.
Craig, just to
Yeah.
jump in, sorry, I was
Yeah.
going to clarify, the plans, and what's confusing, I think, for some folks, is look at the plan, and on the 4th floor, it says office.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone,
had the same
not a lot of people
question.
realize that
Yeah.
that's the office for Unit 3.
Yeah.
It's not a commercial office. So that's, yeah.
Yes.
Home
Yeah.
office.
And I asked this, I had the same question, so don't.
So, I mean, overall, I think this version is definitely headed in the right direction. Would I like to see it a little bit lower in, compared to their surrounding buildings? Probably, but that's not something we have control over. So I appreciate your ability to stay, what was you were granted 50 feet from the ZBA, so I do appreciate that you're staying under that. So I'm not sure we have too many 50-foot buildings in our downtown. So, be a nice skyscraper.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Jen?
Thanks. Similar comments. I would say only 4 parking spots. Use the rest of that floor plate for trash, bikes, strollers, people who don't want to be
Right.
lugging things up to their units, depending on who your clientele is, but these would be nice units for anyone, even, young families, or young adults. Would be great, to Chris's point, the facade on the DNAV side, since we did lose the commercial spot, what could be community facing there? Or is there an opportunity for Franklin Art Association to have some sort of revolving display or murals like we have on the side of like the alley of Birchwood, or just to activate that street front a little bit, knowing that it's otherwise a garage behind it. I am a little concerned just because the garage door is literally on the sidewalk of just pedestrian safety. So I'm wondering, and I know we're not in the city, but like, is there some sort of at least light or something that would warn pedestrians that if a car is going to come in and out? I don't know if that's possible. And regarding the height, I agree. I appreciate you keeping it below what you were granted. At the same point, and I do think that without reducing program, there could be a way to, only on the Dean Ave side, could you potentially set back the top floor a little bit, or play with the roof line or the dormers? I know right now it's, all 3 levels of occupied space are sort of in one mass that sits within the roof volume, but I'm wondering if the roof edge on that DNAV side, like, could that come down at all? Because I think on that side of the building, you just have unoccupied attic space and open to above on that 4th unit, if I'm reading the plans correctly. So just wondering if there's any way to just bring down the scale, the perception-wise, like I said, without losing program on the DNAV side. See if you could play with that facade. The height on the backside doesn't bother me. I think it's great that you're providing a roof deck amenity for a couple of the occupants. But overall, I think it's great to get residents downtown. So appreciate you considering the parking situation that you don't have or have on the site, being creative about how to solve it. Thanks.
Good, thank you. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say thank you to the folks that are trying to work with us as far as providing a new look on the building. Excuse me, I do have a little trouble with the height. That's not a deal breaker. I think it also with the parking, the 4 spaces, and you can, like, as Chris suggested, you could utilize some of that extra space for the residents there as far as some amenities. But overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the results that you provided. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the changes, along with, I think, all the other board members had all good comments as well. The only question I had is there any way to squeeze it a little bit? You're literally 6 inches off the lot lines. I know you want to maximize, but can you pull it in a little bit?
Yeah, we're gonna have to, anyway, to meet the previous zoning, approved setbacks.
Okay.
Which right now we're over. We were trying to match the existing footprint at the tightest corner and go off of that point, but we're gonna have to bring it in anyway, a little bit.
I mean, it's a tall vertical run very close to the edge of the sidewalk comparison. Just assume another, 15 feet from what's there now. So when you're walking next to it, it's gonna be there.
Yeah.
It's gonna show its face when it's finally built, that's all. I'm just, if you can suck it in a little bit, it's great with the parking underneath, I'm sure, I knew you guys were gonna come up with something of a solution, and, you're right, I think the right side of the building just gives something on the Dean Ave side, aesthetically. Air conditioning units, et cetera, they're all, heat pumps or whatnot in the units with, on each unit?
I would think so. We haven't gotten that far, but we do
Just
have a
thinking for
flat area
sound
roof and,
For budding neighbors and whatnot as well.
yep.
Yeah, one second, what else? Thought I had one more in there, but I apologize, I forgot. All right, somebody had their hand up, I'll go to them, I think I have one more comment, but thank you. If you wanna,
Good evening. My name is Kevin Goff. I'm president of Dean Bank in Franklin, a butter to this property. I've spoken to the planning board in the past, generally in support of this project, and I appreciate the work that the applicant has done in terms of improving the property and creating the parking that's necessary for the 4 units under the property itself. I guess, to speak to my concerns this evening, because it seems like this is just a concept, and so I want to first lay a couple things on that I've seen. This is the first proposal that I've seen as posted on your website that actually exceeds the footprint of the building that's currently there. Other presentations have tried to stay within the current boundaries for the most part. There's a little bit in the back rear section, what I guess I would call the south easterly corner of the building. My concern is that the new proposal is essentially going to occupy all the land, and there's not going to be any setback along any of the edge along that abuts the Dean Bank parking lot. The proposal that was approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals specifically stated that the demolition and redevelopment of 19 Dean Ave as proposed by the applicant, and that proposal called for no more than 2.7 to 5 feet setback on the front side. Exactly the existing conditions as listed in the application to the zoning board was 1 foot to 2.7 feet. And that's for the existing foundation. And the applicant to the zoning board was calling for 2.7 to 5 feet of a setback. Now this plan is going to encroach even closer to Dean Ave, not further away.
Correct.
And so I question whether a zoning board, it needs to be weighing in on this to begin with.
That's why I brought it up. I'll let the architect respond because he is going by what ZBA approved, so I'll let the applicant respond back, but that was my comments and questions too.
Yes, and
Okay.
thank you for flagging it, Kevin. I'm still sort of catching up to speed on everything that was previously done. So we do not want to trigger going back in front of zoning board, so we will adjust the footprint to maintain the 2.7 feet in the front and 1.5 feet in the rear. So the footprint will be getting smaller, but we still have some areas on the side setbacks that we could still utilize for footprint, so it still may be larger than the previous approved footprint, but we will need to meet those setbacks. So the plan will be adjusted accordingly.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you.
Chairman, can I ask a question
Sure.
regarding that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah, you want to continue and finish?
I just had a couple other, just, again, this, I'm sure we'll have more than one opportunity to speak to the
Correct.
planning board, so, okay, then I'll leave it be for tonight.
Yeah, this
Thank
was
you.
just an update of previous renderings to the newest, so it's more of an updated one.
Just a question on the ZBA decision, and maybe you can answer this, Attorney. Did the ZBA decision run with a specific property or project, or was it with the property and anything built on that property can meet those restrictions? Now that there's different owners from when it went to ZBA, how is that, I guess, how does that impact us? You have a decision that gave you height, right, as well as a few other things?
Yes, the relief runs with the land.
Okay, that's just my question.
Exactly.
It's not project specific.
Right.
Jen?
Through the chair, I'm wondering, you know, I know this is, you're trying to get sort of, like you said, that 30,000-foot view. Seems like we're heading in the right direction. So that being said, would love to see, the next time you meet with us, some sections that illustrate the building height respective to the nearest neighbors on either side. And also a view from sort of that pedestrian scale on the sidewalk, literally next to the building. I think that will show in pretty short order just even any setback of that top level from, you know, the rest of the facade will make the building feel a lot shorter, even though that is still a fourth, you know, occupied floor. So would just like to see some, you know, just to help everyone understand really what that pedestrian scale view is, in layman's terms, if you will, would be great to see in the next steps. Thanks.
Okay, good, thank you. Is that a comment, question?
Ooh, sorry. Oh, that's me. I'm leaky. I have a tail. My name is Max Margello. I live at 127 Central Park Terrace. I just had some brief comments. First off, I do think that it's important that the residential space in the residential area be maintained for the people who live there, and I think that's important to people who are trying to find a good space to live. I think that the beneficial effects of this project on the town clearly overbalance any adverse ones, as the proposed project addresses and is consistent with neighborhood and town need, especially for transit-oriented housing, and addresses parking-related concerns. For many young people, seniors, and working-class New Englanders, housing costs are increasingly out of reach. There is a clear need for the 7 units this project provides, although that number has changed. It aligns with the 2013 master plan, specifically meeting these objectives. Objective H1.2, encourage development of a mix of rental and owner-occupied housing and units that are affordable to the Franklin's workforce. Objective H1.3, encourage development of workforce housing in areas where where property is underutilized or needs redevelopment and where walking distance of rail service is available. Objective H4.3, encourage the development of smaller housing units to better meet the needs of the younger generation of households. Objective H5.1, promote mixed-use transit-oriented development in appropriate areas. Objective ED 4.3b, encourage development of high-density workforce housing in areas of town where property is underutilized or needs redevelopment or where the walking distance of rail service is available. I ask the planning board to compare the adverse effects and benefits with all the possible alternatives. Keeping the building as is, this dilapidated building will leave a dilapidated structure in the center of town. A one-floor retail unit would be an inefficient use of the space that can support multiple stories. The town has a surplus of office space and adding more is not feasible. Replacing the unit with just parking is not in the public interest when there's an underused public parking lot a 1-minute walk away. If we don't have new housing here, then where do we have it? Certainly not Summer Street. The option is clearly the most beneficial and least adverse for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. I did remember my last question. Were these gonna be rental units or condos?
We plan on.
It's a loaded question, I know.
It's loaded. More than likely condos.
Okay, that was my other question. And we'll wrap up.
Mark Minichelli, 31 Longfellow Drive. So as I previously mentioned, I'm involved with this Ben for Franklin organization, and one of the things that we like about this is abundant and affordable housing by adding more units to the town's inventory, regardless of whether they're condos or apartments. That does tend to move the needle a little bit in the direction of affordability. The more units you have, supply and demand. And regarding the parking requirements, Mr. Chairman, I'm glad you referenced the recent decisions to modify at least some of the parking minimums for downtown development. We believe that that's a step in the right direction, that parking minimums are potentially an outdated concept for downtown areas, and that the decision on parking, the number of parking spaces for a developer should probably be better left up to the developer, whose understanding of supply and demand in the marketplace is really what should be the driver here. We believe that Franklin has an adequate number of publicly available parking spaces in the downtown area, and there may be some opportunities to work some public-private agreements for developments such as this and future developments. So I should speak for myself only. I'm very supportive of this project and would agree to see parking minimums reduced or even eliminated for this or future projects. Thank you.
So just as an FYI, we did give a little reprieve. We went from 1.5 down to 1.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we gave
Understand.
So we gave a little reprieve.
Step in the right direction.
You're not there yet, but it takes time. All right, so, what do you think, Amy? Continuation till?
Yeah, I want to refer to the applicant when they think
What
they,
are your thoughts?
I guess if you got your feedback tonight and you want to start working on stormwater and beta review and feel comfortable going that direction, I think.
I think you got the board's consensus that.
It will take a little bit of time, so I don't want to say it's not
November?
going to be in 2 weeks. Do you plan on submitting revised stormwater or going with the original submittal, since it did hold beta off on it?
It's probably gonna be based on the original.
Okay.
Again, the footprint's a little bit different, but I think all those systems are pretty much the same.
Okay.
But I can't speak for the engineer saying when he would have that. I don't think we'd have to wait till November, but,
Well-
Dave, do you have an idea?
Yeah, sorry, through the chair.
Sure.
They submitted the original stormwater. I just told Beta not to do anything in case things were gonna change. If, you can get back to me this week as well. It doesn't have to be a decision tonight. If you want Beta to move forward with the original submittal, we can give them a go-ahead. If you think you're going to revise anything, I just don't wanna waste time and money here. If you think you're going to send a revised plan, then I'll tell Beta wait for the revised or move ahead with what we have in front of us right now.
Can I connect with you tomorrow or Thursday?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then give
yeah.
you that answer?
Yep, yeah, that's fine.
We have to continue the dates, or?
Yeah, so now based on that,
We're just trying to schedule it out.
Okay.
And make sure you have enough
probably
time to
looking
make.
at November,
Yeah.
I would think,
Yeah.
at this point.
So
So,
first, what's the?
November 4th, I think?
yes, I have November 4th.
November 4th.
November 4th is available.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to continue 19 Dean Ave till November 4th. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chairman, real quick, sorry. I just want to clarify so we don't go too far down the path of Jen's motion, or Jen's thought of setting back, and I'm just envisioning, all of a sudden you come back with an L-shaped roof. And I just want to say that I don't think that's what we're looking for in the step back, right?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it's perception, right? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
saying
yeah.
that the whole thing
I just wanted to
steps
say it
back.
out loud.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, yeah. It's up to the architects to figure out how to achieve that, but it's.
Right.
It will be set back though further because we have to bring it in.
Right, but
ZBA and
he's
whatnot
talking,
too, yeah.
saying like a whole level, you know,
Right, okay.
Yeah.
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 So, November 4th, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Amy, how do you like that?